Hello there, and welcome to the Outside Film Podcast, where we talk film, TV, games, and all that jazz like there's no tomorrow. This week, we're talking about Miss Marvel. My name is Tom, and as always, I'm quoted with my co-host, John.
Hello, it's me.
How are you this week?
I'm good. Yeah, just can't wait to talk about Miss Marvel, which is a really good show.
Good. So Miss Marvel, briefly explain the plot for those who don't know.
Okie dokie. So, Kamala is a superhero fan with an imagination, particularly when it comes to Captain Marvel. Kamala feels like she doesn't fit at school and sometimes even at home. That is until she gets superpowers like the heroes she looked up to.
Lovely. So yeah, spoilers from this point on. So if you haven't seen Miss Marvel and you want to, then go for it. I mean, another week, another Marvel thing. It feels like we're always just talking about, whatever is new in the MCU. But yeah, Miss Marvel, what did you think?
I thought it was an interesting show. It felt like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There's a lot of themes going on in the show, and I felt like there was lots to explore, particularly the culture within Kamala's life, with the family, with how she got powers throughout her family ancestors, which is really interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the best part of this show is the family and Kamala's relationship with her family. She's got a really healthy relationship, and it's not often in comic book stories that a superhero has both of their parents alive and well, and here we get that. We've got Kamala's brother as well, and I feel like that is the strongest aspect of the show. It gives Kamala this sense of responsibility through her conversations with them, and I feel like they provide a good kind of moral compass for her. Every time she's kind of reckless, she kind of thinks about all the ways that it can impact her family, and particularly with the way that she explores her powers. I think the family is really important to that. And I think that makes this show and this hero really, really stand out across the MCU.
Yeah, every time you learn about the family, in Fast and Furious, the whole idea is about, family. And,
Of course.
Yes, of course. But in this one, the MCU, the idea of family isn't explored. It's hinted sometimes throughout, but we get a sense idea, what it means in the MCU, and we explore that with Kamala, and it gets wholesome every time, seeing them just supporting her, especially when Kamala tells everyone that she has powers, and then everyone's like, yeah, we're going to support you every way we can. And that was a very unexpected thing, because usually in the superhero trope, be like, nope, we won't have those superpowers, and be careful, we're not going to do anything, very strict parents. But it's different. I like that.
Yeah, this show definitely felt like it, because thinking about, for example, MCU Spider-Man, obviously Aunt May knows that Peter is Spider-Man, and you don't really get to explore what that means, because they just use it as a joke at the end of Homecoming, and then when you get to Far From Home, they don't actually explore any kind, like the actual moment when May finds out. But here, when Kamala's mom finds out, it's like a really big moment, and you get to see both sides. You get to see the side where the parents are are worried about her and kind of think that she's hiding something, and then you get them to be supportive. And I think that they add a lot of emotional stakes, especially at the end when they're watching her go up against the Department of Defense, and they're worried for her. I think in the finale, there are some really cool scenes. At the beginning of the show, we get this bit where Kamala wants to go to Avenger Con, and her mum is like, okay, well, only if your dad can come with you. And she makes this these matching Hulk outfits, which are really kind of goofy. And she, she puts time into it, and Kamala kind of just shoots her down. And that is, Kamala's mum trying to kind of keep Kamala at arm's length, trying to keep her safe. But in the finale, her mum shows that she's supportive of her, and that will let her kind of be a hero, and let her kind of be a bit more independent by making her this the Miss Marvel suit. And she gives it to her at the end, a suit that embraces her culture. And I think that was a really powerful moment. Also, when Kamala's talking to her dad on the roof, and he kind of talks to her about what her name means, and it's it means Marvel, and you are our Miss Marvel. And genuinely, it was one of those moments where it was so heartfelt, and I got chills. It felt so much more earned than something like Deadshot in Suicide Squad being with some kind of Suicide Squad. It felt so much more kind of powerful.
Yeah, and there was a lot of heartfelt moments in the film, but not in the film, TV show. And that is one of the moments I really liked in the show, where it was like more of a quiet moment, and we get to see her father really supporting her, and then the idea of the name Miss Marvel, which is really cool. And also to add on with the suit, it looks fantastic and very comic accurate. Really cool, and I think that was a really good finale for the with costume, and then Kamala exploring herself and the family as well. And I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of get the same thing that we got recently in the Kenobi show, where, throughout the season, Kamala's look becomes more and more like her classic outfit until she finally dons the full thing at the end. She gets the mask from Bruno and etc. I think that this show really, she is the best part of it. They really do well with that responsibility aspect of it. It's not easy being a hero, and they explore, like the good and the bad. Like, you get like the good, like when she saves, I think it's Zoe from the Avengers Con mistake. And then like later on where she drops the kid when she's trying to catch him. And you see both sides of it, and I think it balances quite well because the show has kind of a bit of a playful, like comedic vibe, and I think it really lets emotional moments hit, and it does kind of really, it allows her to become her own hero in an interesting and new way.
Definitely, and I like how we see her progress as we see her, with her family and then exploring as well. So yeah.
I mean, I think I will say that like this show throws quite a lot of side characters in.
Oh yeah,
this, like there definitely are interchanging side characters. For example, like in episodes 4 and 5, we completely divert from episodes 1, 2, 3, and we travel to Pakistan, and we have a whole different set of characters. It feels like something that would be maybe more fitting in a season 2. Like Bruno isn't in those episodes like at all. Nakia, who is Kamala's best friend, finds out that Kamala is Miss Marvel in episode 3, and then we don't see the fallout of that until episode 6, in which Nakia is largely okay with it. It feels very similar to what I was saying with Spider-Man and Aunt May in the MCU. And I feel like, you also have like interchanging kind of like love interests, like with Cameron and the Red Dagger guy. And it definitely felt like that middle section. I feel like a lot of the MCU shows, the midsection, like it dips, like episode 4 is mostly exposition.
Yeah, and I felt, with every MCU show, the first episodes are really good, and then it just dips in between like 4 and 5. That is a really weird thing because, we're trying to explore her side characters like Bruno and Cameron and Zoe and Nakia. It was really interesting to see those side characters, but then she goes to Pakistan, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it felt like there was too many characters in that whole Pakistan story. So I was like, oh no, there's the Red Daggers, there's this guy who's in charge of the Red Daggers.
Yeah, and they introduce like her cousins, and it feels like they're throwing everything in. One thing that we need to move away from is these 6-episode long shows. I think we've seen it in a lot of Disney Plus stuff, in all the MCU shows apart from WandaVision at this point. Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, they are all stretching out this one simple linear story, which could be a film, and they're stretching out to 6 episodes. And therefore you've got this chunk in the middle, which largely there are character moments that really work, but largely you don't really need most of it. And I do feel like, it's a real shame. And what we need to get to, and this is, okay, so we've got She-Hulk coming soon, She-Hulk, which is going to be 9 episodes. And I feel like what we need to get to is shows that are TV shows and not just like an extra long movie. Like, what I want is to see is like episodic. That's why The Mandalorian works. That's why stuff like The Boys works like a lot better. When you think about like these kinds of shows, they work as TV shows. Andor is coming out soon. Very excited for that. And that's going to be 12 episodes. Like that is so much more refreshing than just 6 episodes, following like one like story. And I feel like, I hope that Miss Marvel is the last Marvel show with 6 episodes, because I really think that we're suffering because of it.
Why do we need so many shows? It's getting repetitive.
There's so many, man.
The thing is, when it comes to superhero TV shows, we explore Kamala, but where's the villain?
Boy.
You see the villain, you're probably asking, John, is there a villain in the show?
John, is there a villain in the show?
I can't really tell.
Oh, the villain's a big shite, man.
Good way of putting it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you see, the villain in this is just nothing. There's no motivation, really, like actual motivation, and it's got a really weird plot decision. So basically, the villain of the show is Cameron's mother, and Cameron's mother is charge of this group who are basically they're like the Eternals, but with less powers. You see, they live a lot longer, not a lot longer than the Eternals, just humans, and they're from this whole other planet or dimension called the Nor. So basically, they want to go back to the Nor, but the villain doesn't do a lot of things, and she dies in episode 4.
Yeah, these are Jinn, and the Jinn want Kamala to open this portal to the Nor, and Kamala eventually does by accident. And when they try to get in, they are just disintegrated and die. Like not like they just disappear, they literally turn into bones and then fall to the floor. Literally, the villains were so incredibly weak, so one note. Like they did like the classic, like, oh, Kamala, we're gonna help you, and then Kamala decides to go to a wedding instead, and they're like, how dare you betray us, we're gonna kill you. And it's like, whoa, she just went to a wedding, man, calm down. Like, okay, their whole thing is that they really want to go home, right? It reminded me a lot of Reverse Flash in the Flash season 1, but oh my god,
it does.
Like these villains, like Reverse Flash is one of the best comic book villains. Flash season 1 is perfection, like just incredibly done, and this was just the opposite of how you do it. Like, oh my god, I just think that it was so boring the way that these guys were handled. And then we have the Department of Defense, who are also kind of villains.
I can't,
but not really.
I can't take them seriously. The Department of Defense, like, it's just a name. The Department of Defense.
They're literally just like the most insensitive people. They spend the entire show just breaking into the mosques, like, you know, like being really disrespectful to like the mosques, and like, you know, going after teenagers, and like, you know, shooting it like in high schools. And you get this whole bit at the end where like all like the citizens and all the good police all come to them, and it was pretty ridiculous. I feel like these guys, like, the main guy from the Department of Defense is actually in No Way Home. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, him? Oh,
yeah, he's the guy who interviews like Peter and May and MJ and Ned, as I think like he's like I think he's FBI, but like it's just a weird thing to do. I don't know why any of them are there.
It's such a weird thing. Like the Department of Defense, they just go like, oh yeah, we think some superpower teenagers in this mosque, and like that's a really weird thing to say. And then they go into the mosques, and then they don't take off the shoes. Yeah, it was really weird. Yeah.
Oh, it's it's damage control, not defense. Excuse me, Department of Damage Control.
Damage control.
It's the same guys as at the beginning of Homecoming as well, apparently. And then like at the end, Cameron gets these powers, and he kind of becomes a villain in some way. Like he's attacking everyone, and you know, Kamala has to calm him down. And it felt like all three of these things that become, you know, like forces that Kamala has to sort out are just so underdeveloped. And like we spend so much time, you know, and they genuinely do give a lot of time and care to exploring Kamala's family and, you know, her powers, and they don't do that for the villains. And if this show was 8 episodes or 9 episodes, you could genuinely give time to all of these plot lines, and, you know, stretch out the stuff in Pakistan, stretch out the high school plot lines, you know, and give the villains more of a presence. I feel like they really need that.
It feels like a bit messy with the villains side. Like, you know, they don't actually show the whole, I mean, they did for Aisha, but for the backstory of like where they came from the Snore, they only showed like a brief moment of what the Nor looks like. How did they get here? You know, like with the exile, they can have like a whole backstory, you know, being exiled, and, you know, that's their motivation to go home. But that isn't shown at all in the show. And we only get a bit of dialogue, like saying, oh, we got exiled. Like, oh, okay. So
yeah, like plot lines really, they come and go. Like think about the high school stuff. It's really prominent in the first 2 episodes, and then it just disappears, and it kind of comes back in the final episode. But again, 6 episodes, just stop. Like it really feels tiring now. And I feel like audiences in general, we're all feeling the effects of all this Marvel content more than we ever have. Like we've got 3 or 4 films a year. We've got like 5 shows a year. Like there's so much like happening, and it's I'm tired, and I feel like this show would have worked a lot better as either a longer show or a movie.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a movie, but it's a lot longer.
But I feel like this show has a lot to love. Like, I feel like a lot of people aren't watching this show, and I feel like they are really missing out. Like, one thing that I really, really enjoyed was the fact that they did go to Pakistan, and you get to explore Pakistani culture in America and in Pakistan itself. You get to see a Muslim wedding, and they explore like Eid a little bit. I think that's really cool, especially since it feels like media will like overly represent these countries through terrorism and through like war. Like, think about the first Iron Man. I think like their action scenes like in Pakistan or in like a country like surrounding there, and you don't get to explore that culture, but here you do, and that was like so fun. I feel like I have learned more as somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about that culture, and like it feels like it's doing the heavy lifting that some of my education never did.
Yeah, like we learned about that culture only a brief moment in school. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit of it. And then in the show, there's a lot I didn't know, and I learned a lot about the mask. I learned about the wedding, and it looked really fun. Like they do really cool things, and
yeah. I feel like especially in the first 2 episodes of the show, the style of the show. Oh my God. Like, originally this episode was going to be called Miss Marvel is the most stylish MCU show. I decided to change it because the style really drops off after episodes 3. But episode 1 and 2, the directors of episode 1 and 2, they were so good. The texting scenes, oh my God, amazing. We have like this scene where Bruno and Kamala are texting each other, and as Bruno is like walking through the street, you have like the road like showing like the text and like neon signs, these really inventive ways. There's a brilliant sequence where they're cycling through Jersey, and they're talking about what could your outfit look like, or like these things. And whilst they're doing it, the graffiti on the wall is like coming alive and like showing like their thoughts. And I thought that was so cool. And there's some really, really nice camera movements. And there's this whole bit where, after Kamala meets Cameron and she's dancing around her house, and there are like blue lights on her. And even in episode 3 is a whole like dance sequence at the wedding that, while I didn't think it was shot in the most stylish way, there are some really cool elements of style. And then they just stop in episode 4, 5, and 6. There's barely anything. And it was such a shame because this show, like, really, it felt like, an explosion of this kind of like teenage mind. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I felt like that was very refreshing to see, how Texan scenes are done. Like, oh God, there's a lot of Texan scenes that are just so boring. Like, I can name a few, like Top Gun, Maverick, Uncharted. That was so boring, that text. If you want to hear about ranting about that film, go
oh
ahead.
Boy. But yeah, no, you're right. It really did provide something new. And even to the MCU, like last week we did Love and Thunder. We did an episode on it. And that film is so boringly shot. There's nothing interesting about it. There are a couple of cool shots, but mostly it doesn't look very good. And this show, especially in the first half, was brilliantly refreshing for Marvel.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Visually, it's refreshing. Characters I really liked, and the whole idea with when a person chooses family, the family will protect them. So that's a interesting idea to go through. Yeah.
And the score as well. Brilliant score. Like, Miss Marvel has her own theme, which I think works really, really well. And we got some licensed music as ever, which is, it sometimes lights. It works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, they got blinding lights at the beginning. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think the score was really fun.
Yeah, the score was really good. There was some interesting elements with the score. Also, there was really impactful moments that were so emotional, like when Kamala goes back in time and finds her ancestors in the train station. This is during the partition, and I did not know anything about the partition, and that was really impactful. And I was like, wow, okay. And I thought that was a really interesting way of like exploring the family, and as well with Aisha, how history impacts some of the key characters as well. And I thought that was really interesting to tie that into that whole story. And where that moment where Kamala was the one who did the stars, and that actually led to the father. And I was really emotional, like Oh yeah, and then when Aisha gave that photo, and then Kamala gave that photo to the grandmother, that was really emotional. Like
Yeah.
she said that was the only picture of her father, and then got both of them as well, and that was really emotional. Like wow,
Yeah, that
yeah.
episode was really, really cool. I think that it is a really good opportunity to learn about the partition. Like again, something that I didn't know a whole lot about. There's a Doctor Who episode about it, which is one of the better episodes of the Jodie Whittaker era. But yeah, like I
Oh
do feel
that.
like
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I know
yeah,
now.
season 11, and I feel like this definitely kind of did it in a really, really good way. And I agree with all the emotions that it gave. I mean, it definitely breaks the MCU's time travel rules, but it doesn't really matter. It works for the story, and I think
And
that's
travel.
what's the most
Come on, man.
important. I want to kind of talk about. I
Uh,
definitely felt a little bit of a disconnect. I hate how Captain Marvel, the movie, is set in the 90s. I think it's so pointless. But what I kind of want to talk about is originally they were going to have somebody shot the final battle in Endgame with a drone. So some member of the public
with a
shot it.
drone?
Right. So the public has seen that final battle, which is why the public knows about Captain Marvel. The big thing that I was just so confused
Oh.
about, how does Kamal know about Captain Marvel? How is she such like a big, like, has she been working on, like in Shang-Chi, she's not on Earth. Like, has she been working on Earth? Like, it doesn't look like it. Like, they talk about like how she comes and destroys Thanos' ship in Endgame, but no one saw that. The audience did, but no one else. Like, why is like it
Why?
felt really weird. Like, and it's gonna be a bit strange going into the Marvels
Wait,
when
wait. 'Cause
Captain Marvel hasn't really had that impact on Earth to Earth's public.
oh my god, I wish some idea that's happening in Marvel, like how do we show the final battle in game to the public, like everyone would know? I'm like, drones. Like, yeah, of course, drones.
Obviously, they ended up cutting that, but I do think that would have been, like you need to explain it somehow. And I think it's so
Yeah.
weird that everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Captain Marvel's the best," and it's like, how
How do you
how have
know?
you seen
How
Captain
do you
Marvel?
know, Sherrick? Yeah, some of the characterization wasn't that amazing for me. Like, she wasn't that superhero thing. I don't know what was the direction for Brie Larson in this film for that Captain Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, she was very deadpan.
Yeah,
Like there wasn't
yeah,
really
she's
emotion for
she,
it.
she's so stoic, and I
Yeah,
feel like that
exactly
that
that.
loses some emotion there. But yeah, I think it's interesting. And obviously in the post credit scene, we get Kamala and Carol swap places. It looks like, and so
Yeah,
Carol is in Kamala's room and looks around, and she's like, "What the hell is going on?" But I do think that interesting things are set up. Obviously, next we've got the Marvels, which we'll see Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, and Miss Marvel all come together. I think that's going to be interesting. I think this show definitely does something to make me more excited for it. I'm interested to see how they handle the post-credit scene. Like, I would love a scene where Captain Marvel comes downstairs and Kamala's parents are there and like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I have no idea what's happening right now." And you deal with all of that, and kind of like through the perspective of the parents, Carol learns who Kamala is and why is she important. I think that could be interesting in the Marvels, but there's definitely some interesting things that have been set up here, like Kamala is a mutant apparently.
what? Yeah, I guess Feige doesn't like Inhumans.
Oh, he hates Inhumans.
Yeah,
That's like a thing he never wanted to do Inhumans,
yeah,
but
he never
here we
did.
are.
Like when they showed Inhumans on that Comic Con. I think yeah, it was
Yeah.
Comic Con, and they showed it, and I was like, yeah, Inhumans, baby. They only showed like a TV show of it, and
Yeah.
that was shown in cinemas. I don't know why. I don't, if you remember this,
Yeah. In
like
IMAX.
in IMAX. That
Yeah.
is so bizarre.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Inhumans is like widely agreed on as the worst MCU thing. I haven't seen it, but
I haven't seen
only
it.
I've heard only bad things.
It
But
can't be that bad, can it?
oh no,
Can,
apparently it's dreadful.
oh, there's
Yeah.
a clip
Don't
where
watch the
I don't know.
clip, John.
It, it was Black Bolt as a kid. It's not supposed to be funny. It's not supposed to be funny, John. It's Black Bolt as a kid,
I think I know the one you mean.
and he tries talking to his parents, and
And he
then
killed
he just kills them.
Oh, it's
Like,
ridiculous.
it's ridiculous.
It's definitely an interesting decision to make Kamala a mutant, make her the MCU's first mutant. So I guess we'll see how that all goes. And I think there are some interesting things that they could continue to do. But I guess we'll find out next year with the Marvels and obviously
Oh, boy.
Comic-Con, which is next week. So I guess we'll find out what Comic-Con has to offer. So yeah, Miss Marvel, what are you going to give it out of 10?
A 7 or I don't know, 6 or 7.
I'm going to say 6, but I think it's interesting that nearly every single Phase 4 thing is a 6 or a 7. Like Phase 4 is so mediocre. Like we really need something to properly, blow us away. But yeah, but now we can rest and take a break from Marvel for a while. Oh, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. We've done so much Marvel recently. It's been insane. Did all the Thor films, the Doctor Strange films, Moon Knight, Avengers. Obviously, we've done Miss Marvel. There's so much. So watch it. Just, yeah. And now we're going to finally rest. And next week for our 100th episode, we're going to be talking about Lightyear. So, 100 episodes. Wow. We'll talk about that next week. But yes, like and subscribe if you want to see more. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Outtime Film Pod and email us with your questions about Miss Marvel. Tell us what you think or ask us anything about anything really. If you email us at Outtime Film Pod, and we will reply right here on the pod itself.
Yes, and thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe and like the video if you want to hear more content about the not the MCU, other stuff as well.
That's a thing.
We're kind of tired of the MCU right now. Yeah, make sure you're safe and be good. Take what you're given.
Give nothing back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.